Welcome to NexGenEdu's AI Innovation Series, where we take a quick, candid look at real people and their views and the use of AI to transform higher education. No hype, just insight. Lawrence Rue brings over 30 years of experience at the intersection of technology and education. Each episode features conversations with inspiring individuals who are passionate about helping others succeed through learning. And now, your host, Lawrence Rue.
Thanks, Chris, and welcome to AI Innovation, where we explore how AI, data, and digital transformation are reshaping the future of higher education. I'm Lawrence Rue, your host. Our guest today is one of the most forward-thinking community college leaders in the country and a national voice on digital transformation, workforce innovation, and the role AI has in education. Lee Lambert is the Chancellor of Foothill-De Anza Community College District in Silicon Valley. Over the past 3 decades, he has led institutions across multiple states and has been deeply involved in shaping how higher education responds to AI, automation, and advanced technologies. Today, we are talking about the next 1,000 days of AI in higher education, what's coming, what's accelerating, and how institutional leaders can prepare for what lies ahead. Lee, welcome to AI Innovation. I'd like to start with you doing a short introduction of yourself. Appreciate you being on the show.
First of all, I want to thank you for asking me to be on the show, and it's great to see you and to just be in this present moment of an exciting period in the history of not only the United States, but really across the entire globe. Just a little bit about myself. I'm not traditionally from higher education. I was going to go down the practice law path, is where I saw my career evolving, but I enjoyed being a college student. And I realized, you know what if I could apply my legal knowledge into that space? And so I went there, and now it's led me to where I am today. And really, I didn't start out embracing technology, but now it's like I can't imagine life without it.
Yeah, it's amazing how it's integrated into everything we do nowadays.
Absolutely.
Well, let's get started with some questions. The first one to set the framework of the AI moment versus digital era. You know, when people talk about AI in higher education, they often focus on the tools that we're using. You've been very clear this moment is bigger than AI alone, that it's really about a broader digital transformation. How do you frame this moment for institutional leaders?
I think part of it is understanding what's actually happening. So, for example, we're moving from industrial era curve onto a digital era curve. But right now we're in this liminal zone, and how long we will remain there is yet to be determined. But one thing is for sure, that time is fast approaching. And why do I say that? Well, obviously, folks are focused on AI and Gen AI and agentic AI and autonomous, and ultimately this humanoid embodiment of all of that. But what underlies it are a set of technologies that often don't get the attention they deserve. So let me put aside AI for a moment. There's mobile, we're all familiar with mobile. There's cloud, there's the Internet of Things, and then there's the actual semiconductor chip. So when you bring all those together, I call them the 4 superpowers plus 1, which is the chip. That's what's driving this digital transformation. So when we talk about digital transformation, we're actually talking about data. We're talking about computing power, and then models and algorithms. When all that comes together and those technologies drive all of that, that's why we're now moving quickly into this new era of digital transformation. And that's going to require us to redesign our academic enterprise.
Yeah, so the AI is just the tip of the spear, kind of, with all the technologies behind it, is what you're saying.
Oh, absolutely. And it's easy to just focus on the AI and lose the larger context, because things are evolving. Right now, we're talking about AI. We used to talk about the combustible engine back at the turn of the 20th century, right? And so we have to not lose that perspective.
Well, I'd like to get into a little bit of some practical examples of, let's call it the first 1,000 days, what you've learned. So looking back at the first phase of your AI adoption, you personally, your district, where have you seen the most meaningful impact? And also, like, where have you seen institutions struggle the most?
I think that's a great question, right? And during that first 1,000 days, understanding what the AI, since we're talking about AI, what it's really strong at. It's really understanding the routine, repetitive aspects that it's really good at. Its ability to look at large data sets, see patterns, and be able to provide perspective on those patterns. So when you look at it that way, uh, then all of a sudden, and then you keep in mind the human needs to be at the center of all of that. So having a set of principles that root us as human beings into the technology, a human plus machine type of way of thinking, as opposed to AI is going to replace humans. So with that said, we've actually used the tool to solve problems. It's not about asking about a tool, it's asking, what problems do we need to solve? And then how does these different technologies help us solve the problem? I'll give you just some real quick examples of that.
That's great. Yeah, I'd love
So,
to hear.
fraud detection. So we know we have these bots. Some people refer to them as they're taking up seats in courses, but more importantly, they're taking up the financial aid dollars.
Yeah.
So we and that was putting tremendous stress on staff. Every single term, you're trying to catch who these fraudulent students are. But guess what? AI is good at routine and repetitive. AI is good at looking at large data sets. Why not use AI? And so, in fact, we partnered with End-to-End as a company, and we developed a fraud detection tool. We started out with 2 districts in California, and then we went up to 10 districts and then 20 districts. Now we're at 80 colleges, approaching 100. So the rapid scale, how can you scale that quickly? And this is just a little over a year ago. And by the way,
Yeah.
this is also being deployed in other states as well. So it's like this is what's happening in the first 1,000 days, right? And then the other part is investment in the professional development of your employees so they understand what this is all about. And I think, and more importantly, I'll close this out on this piece. You, the leader, the CEO, I really believe we have to engage with the technology, with the AI. I use it every single day.
Yeah.
It is my number one thought partner.
Well, so as you're adopting AI as a leader, like how do you set the guardrails around it and the importance of that? So
Right.
governance, culture, those sorts of things.
Well, I mean, you're hitting at some of the more important aspects of all of this, right? So in the state of California, we have an AI council that's part of the state chancellor's office, and I sit on that council. One of the things that the council did was created a framework of principles. And
Mhm.
one aspect of that was making sure the humans would always be at the center of that, that there would be accountability and transparency, that we it would be bias mitigation and all the kinds of things. So it set that frame for the guardrails, is my point.
That's
And
good.
I think you have to use that to help guide whatever approaches you might take within your organization.
So let's move to the next 1,000 days. Like, what do you think is going to change first? Like, what's going to be the technology, that you think will fully be embraced by higher ed,
Well, I think
and
let me
and will
take
have an impact on something like curriculum, operations, student life cycle?
I think, let me take a step back from this because it's really about a leadership mindset shift. So we have to move from siloed thinking to really designing systems and understanding how those systems integrate into our overall enterprise. We tend to think of our enterprises as these siloed verticals, and it's like that's not going to get it done anymore. And so that mindset shift, right? You have to be focused on people, culture, governance, and I call sustainability, which is the financials as well as your climate elements. Those are the
Mhm.
through lines through all of the horizontals. And when I say the horizontals, I'm talking about energy, I'm talking about facilities, technology, operations, and then you get to your academic mission side of things. And so in this next 1,000 days, you need to make sure all of those pieces are coming together in a systematic way. So I'll just illustrate, for example. You want to integrate more and more of these technologies into your campus environment. They're going to make huge demands on your facilities. And at the end of the day, it comes down to energy. Do you have the energy to power all of this? And then the heating and the
Are you referring
cooling.
to just the physical energy, or human and?
No, well, yeah, you got that too. Good point, right? But it's the physical. I'm talking about the physical energy. You're
Yeah,
making greater
electricity.
demands on your grid.
Hmm.
But if you haven't modernized your transformers, so you can take that energy that's coming into your institutions and utilize it, what you're going to have is power shutdowns, power failures. You won't be able to properly cool your buildings because as you add more of these technology tools, it throws off a heat signature, uh, and then you got more devices. I think you get my point.
Yeah.
Often we forget about those aspects of it. We're looking at the sexy side of it instead of the more mundane reality sides of it. So the next 1,000 days are going to require us to get better at understanding those components I just shared. And it
Yeah.
has to be all brought together. And do you have those pieces in place? Because if you don't, you won't be able to optimize.
When we started adopting wireless, like we had to have the infrastructure of just the wired network to support good wireless network.
Yes. So this next 1,000 days is going to really put greater demands because you're moving from pilots to actual full systems integration, which all of a sudden is going to put you in a difficult place. So I think the other part I would say is, what's your leadership compass? And I'll get to that later on in our conversation.
Well, let me move on and let's talk a little bit about, you spent some time with the state and other partners writing a paper on AI and digital transformation. What are the most important recommendations for college leaders and governing boards that you would have from that experience?
Well, let me first, recognize the Silicon Valley Leadership Group, who really helped pull all of this together for us. And I sit on their board, and it also involves Stanford, was also an important player in this equation. Deloitte provided the resources for us to be able to do this work. So there were three key recommendations that came out of the report, and aligning AI education with workforce needs. So really doing that gap analysis and then understanding that, okay, here's the opportunity as part of a curriculum design or curriculum redesign work, which is the second recommendation, and that your curriculum has to be flexible, it has to be adaptable, and approaching it through a design thinking model. And that means you got to sit down with your employers, the end users, right? The students, the employers, to say what's needed. So that focus on collaboration. And then you get into, modular, stackable, and all those kinds of aspects of curriculum. And then, so we've created an AI certificate. We're moving down, creating an AI degree. There's going to be the need for an AI bachelor's degree. We're exploring that option, even though we're a community college. We do have baccalaureate conferring capability now, and we have to work through internal processes. But we've been integrating AI into different programs. So it's not just creating its own standalone certificate or degree, but how are you integrating it into programs of existing studies?
Mm-hmm.
And so our business department and our computer science department, as an example, are getting closer together now. So you see how, if you're not at this stage by now, and it goes back to this next 1,000 days, you're going to have to run because you are far behind at this point if you're not at this point of what I'm talking about.
And what I've heard you say in some of our prior conversations is really, the institution's at risk if it's treating this like an IT project instead of an institutional project, right?
That's why I go back to, the systems thinking, got to think enterprise wide, and going back to the third recommendation was about accessibility, inclusion, and ethical implementation. So some of the things we had already touched about. We can't afford to leave anybody behind. That's important here, right? And I think for community colleges especially, we serve 100% of people who come to us. We don't turn people away in the traditional sense, right? And so we need to make sure that all of them, when they come and then they leave, they are equipped with these modern technology capabilities. And if we don't do that, I think we're missing a huge opportunity, as well as we're doing a disservice to that individual.
Well, it's great work. And we appreciate you focusing on that. Let's move over to some of the pilots that you're working on. At your institution, you're doing a number of things, AI-driven digital twins with faculty, Google AI pilot, embedding AI into certificates, degrees, which you just talked about. What is the common thread across all of this work?
A lot of this is coming bottom up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an important piece. It's not, let me back. I talk about it a lot. Don't get me wrong, right? But I, as the CEO or anybody on a senior leadership team or a cabinet, you're not the one doing the work. You're not the one who's going to have to do the heavy lifting. So it has to be that your faculty and your staff are coming to you saying, I want to do this, and can you support me to be able to do this? And I think that's what's so important in all of this. So finding those champions within the organization and supporting them, because not everybody's going to buy in, but find the early adopters, right? And then you got to get to this chasm point. And that's another part of this 1,000-day conversation is there's this point on that technology adoption curve where you hit the chasm. And what I mean by that is you're going from the early those visionaries and early adopters to the early majority. So that's where we are now, leaving the last 1,000 days to the next 1,000 days. We're at that chasm point. And once you can cross that over and get to those early majorities, now you're at the top of the bell curve now.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to get to.
I went to a workshop with the League of Innovation. They did a workshop on AI. It was great. Schools would bring teams of 5 or 6 people, come with 3 or 4 problems, and they didn't really learn about AI in the workshop. They worked through the problems. Then they shared it with all the other schools. Maybe there were like 20 schools there too. I thought it was a great couple days, spent doing that.
Absolutely, because everything we've already learned has immense application in this new digital era. It's now bringing the digital overlay to help amplify and enhance what we're doing. It's not a replacement for, it's an amplification and enhancement of us as humans. And so we should not be afraid, but we need to lean in and leverage its full capability.
Let's move on to talking about people and skill sets. As AI and autonomous systems become more capable, some people worry, I'm going to be replaced. The human role in higher ed will be replaced. In your view, which human skills actually become more important in the next 1,000 days?
Well, but this is also the story of human evolution. Okay. And then you've probably heard the term VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. Well, that's the world we're living in. And so, but how do you make sense of that? Well, that is uniquely human strength, our ability to make sense of things, our ability to bring judgment and ethical thinking, our capacity for empathy and human connection. So all the things that make us human now become more important than ever. And that's why one of the things I talk about a lot is the liberal arts are now more important than ever. And sometimes that gets lost in the conversation. I think it's more important that we hold up the liberal arts because they help us make sense of the world around us. They help us become better at using our becoming more ethical, making good judgments and decisions, learning to be a better human being, right? And then how do we make sense of our lived experience? Those are our strengths. We just need to continue to leverage those. And I think that's going to be an important part of all of this as we go forward.
I agree. And I think, I've seen, there was an episode I watched on a podcast with Dreamforce where they had AI bots that were answering questions and it was doing a pretty good job, but it wasn't very human, which is kind of interesting, right? So they had to train it to be human by giving it its customer service manual. And then it learned, but then it created jobs above the AI bots. So people who manage the AI bots to make sure they're performing correctly. So again, it replaced people, but it created jobs also. So very interesting.
And I think, that's a good analogy. because when you think about what happened at the turn of the 20th century with the combustible engine,
Mhm.
it got rid of a lot of jobs. But think
Yeah.
of all the jobs it created, from the pilot to the flight attendants to the folks who build our roads, to the gas stations, and I can go on and on and on, right? I think the same thing's
Yeah.
going to happen here. We don't know what it's all going to be, but because this technology is there, some person or persons are going to come up with great ideas that are going to create those next great companies. And so I'm excited by that.
Yeah. Do you remember the video? It's called Shift Happens. It was about
Yes,
10 or 15 years ago. And it was like, all this is going to happen. And it's
right.
like, now we're really realizing some of the things they were talking about, right? It's pretty
Uh,
amazing.
Absolutely. But again, just think, my grandmother, uh, you know, she never flew on a plane because
Yeah.
when she was growing up, there were no airplanes at
And now,
scale.
and now we're almost on planes every week.
That's exactly right, right? So that's what's going to happen here too.
Yeah.
And it's exciting if you're open and adaptable. And I think coming back to the leadership, we are so critical to create and support the environment for this transformation to occur.
That's awesome. Well, I know we're kind of getting towards the end. I got one question here. What's the one piece of advice over the next 1,000 days that's critical that you'd like to give
Invest
to the audience?
invest in your people. Professional development will become increasingly important. It's so easy because our budgets are strained and stretched to cut the investment in professional development. I think we really need to think about, okay, what's working, what's not working programmatically, and we need to think about that more deeply. But the key is to invest in your people and then align your strategies, your systems around the human reality. And I talked about that compass, and it's like, okay, what is your compass, your leadership compass, and detailing that out, and then how does that guide you in creating a new way of thinking about the academic enterprise?
And Lee, let me just push you a little bit on the training. Like, what are you trying to make sure everybody's trained in? Is it like they're certified in AI, or is there specific training,
Well,
co-pilot certification? Like,
it's different levels. So first is getting people familiar with just AI in general.
mhm.
What is an LLM? Um, and how do you interface with that? How do you write prompts? Uh, and how do you interact with the tools? But then going to more sophisticated levels and understanding these tools are already integrated into your phone. They're integrated into what our ability to do this right now. It's integrated into your car. So it's understanding how it moves up. And then sometimes it can be more formal, a certificate program or where you get a certification. But the key is that you're thinking about all these pieces, and then you get into job specific types of training. So I mentioned the fraud detection tool. So we needed to make sure we supported our financial aid, our registration record employees to
Mhm.
understand how this fraud detection tool works and how it's going to be able to spot things, and then how their role comes into that, right? Because now what they're going to be dealing with are the exceptions, the ones who got flagged. Now that's the one they're going to
Yeah.
intervene on to make sure we don't have too many false positives and the wrong people being flagged out. So that's where the but that's the kind of professional development, very job specific, and that can be unique depending on your different areas.
And it reminds me of the saying, like, AI won't replace people. People who know AI will replace people. And maybe we need to think of it at a higher level. It's like AI won't replace education and institutions, but institutions that use AI will probably move forward quicker and help the people that they serve. Right.
Well, you're spot on, Lawrence.
Mhm.
And again, as I said, this is about investing in people, investing in our own growth and development and our own evolution, and then bringing a systems enterprise-wide thinking and keep humanity at the forefront.
Well, Lee, I really appreciate your time. I know we're running at the end, and I know you got a flight and you're getting up early to be on the show. I really appreciate it.
You
And,
bet.
I look forward to seeing you in person at one of the conferences in the new year. Have a happy holiday, a happy new year.
And happy holidays to you and happy new year. And I would say go Cowboys, but You know, I'm a Seahawks fan, and so go Seahawks, right?
So what's your prediction for the Super Bowl? Who you think's going, the Seahawks? Because I can't say that about the Cowboys right now.
You know, I think it's probably the Rams and or the Green Bay Packers.
All right. Since we're pre-taping this, you're going to be on record. So,
but although I think Seattle could surprise you if they can get some things put together, but I think what I'm seeing are the Rams and the Packers, and New England and Denver. They're very they're surprising everybody.
okay. Well, again, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
and
Lawrence.
Safe travels.
Okay. You take care.
And thanks everyone for listening to NexGenEdu's AI Innovation Series. If you found today's conversation valuable, share it with a colleague. Additionally, the easiest way to ensure you never miss a future episode is simply hitting that follow or subscribe button on whatever app you're listening on right now. It takes 2 seconds, costs nothing, and makes a huge difference in supporting the show. And stay tuned for more discussions on how AI and digital transformation reshaping higher education.
Thanks for joining us on AI Innovation, where we explore how AI is reshaping higher education with insight, integrity, and imagination. Be sure to follow us on LinkedIn or YouTube for updates and future episodes. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, and keep asking the big questions.